If you're not going to be part of the solution, what do they say? Then you're part of the problem.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download the podcast, the show is free. You know I always appreciate your support. And today you can get you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers, yep. If you place a $5 bet, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So what does that mean? If you're not part of the solution and you're part of the problem, quite simply, it's easy. It's easy to understand. If you aren't actively trying to fix the problem, then literally by doing nothing, you're prolonging the issue. It actually encourages people, take some responsibility. Actively, find the solution, work towards a positive change, rather than just kind of sitting back saying, yeah, you know what, that needs to be fixed. That needs to be fixed. Well, as Coach Riley would say, no duh, or he might use a different expletive, but he recognizes there are problems, there are issues that have to be fixed at USC. Does he know what the solution is? He probably does. Doesn't want to admit it. Look, fans, you guys can vent your frustration. That's part of your problem solving. If you're rich enough, you really want to be part of the solution. If you think the problem's that big, you can write a check and make the problem go away. But since firing Lincoln Riley is not an option, and by the way, it's not one I support. I support making Lincoln Riley the best possible head coach available, helping him get to that next level. Question is, how do we get there? What's the next step in the solution process? How do we make Lincoln Riley the best head coach available on the market? Yes, I get it. The easy solution right now, if you want to make a change, fix the problem, change the quarterback. Let's look a little bit bigger picture, okay? My everydayers, you've heard me say this since the beginning of the season. I think Coach Riley needs to give up the play calling duties. Hire an offensive coordinator, play caller. I'm going to take it a step further. He needs to hire someone outside of his comfort zone. Hire someone from outside his circle of influence. That means no more Mike Leach, air raid disciple type of guys. You need to break away from that. Again, go get someone you have very little familiarity with. But obviously you want someone who comes highly regarded. You use the same approach that you use when you hired your defensive coaching staff. Look, I don't think anybody's going to deny that staff that he put together during the offseason, top notch, right? Yeah, you'd probably like to see a little bit more production from the defensive line, but don't forget you've lost some players. But Coach Antonlynn, he brought his scheme and he made it work with the players that he had available, that he currently has available. Have they been perfect? No. Did they lose some of their best pieces along the years that went on? Yes. Bear Alexander, Eric Gentry, the secondary for 3-4 games. But look, has the defense carried their weight? They've made some key errors late in the games. Have they carried their weight though overall? Absolutely, without a doubt. So if you know that you can go out and bring in a new defensive coordinator, new coaches that can make an impact during the offseason, going in one year, Go bring in an offensive coordinator. Bring in that new scheme. Another well-established proof of concept. I don't think he got lucky with Antonlynn because whatever he left behind at UCLA, it's still working. So number one, if Coach Riley does this, he's showing some accountability, and he's acknowledging that he's willing to grow as a head coach. Secondly, he long term for the betterment of the team, he can now focus on the head coaching duties. Holding players accountable, not feeling that you have to be slighted or biased a little bit because it's happening on the opposite side of the ball. I think the downside to making this happen is minimal. Coach Lynn had his say in who he wanted on his staff. So I would imagine Lincoln Riley would offer the same type of grace to the offensive coordinator, maybe to a lesser degree. I don't think you're going to get Lincoln Riley to walk away from the offense completely, and I don't want him to. But you know what? Offensive line coach and a position coach, if you're thinking that the new OC is going to want to make some changes, I think that's probably you're going to say, all right, if you want your own offensive line coach, fine. Who do you recommend? Do you need another position coach that you feel comfortable with? Okay, let's talk about that. So I guess maybe that's the other issue. Does Coach Riley, does he need to separate himself from, say, Dennis Simmons? I'm not saying it needs to happen or it should happen. I'm just kind of throwing this scenario out there. I mean, you brought in Anthony Jones Jr. during the offseason to replace Kyle McDonald. It's worked out pretty well. I think he's done a fantastic job with the running backs. We all want to see them used more. That's not Coach Jones's call. That's Coach Riley's call. We've been talking about that a lot. That's why we're having this conversation right now. And look, I don't think you need to make a change with the tight end coach. Considering the injuries that Zach Hansen's dealt with, they've been pretty good, and the future is bright. You look at those younger players, Walker Lyons, Walter Matthews. I like what they're bringing in. Joey Olsen. I'm not knocking Josh Henson either. I think the offensive line has gotten better as the season's gone along. I know I'm saying that right after, Mason Murphy had a really rough game but it's as difficult as it is to believe. I think the offensive line has gotten better as the season went along. But if we're going to use Coach Simmons as I'm not even saying the scapegoat, but as maybe the next guy to move along in his own coaching career, he came with Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma, and he's recruited some really nice chess pieces. But right now, where are we this year with the super sophomores? Where are we with their development? How much of this is on the players? Them not executing when they're on the field. Were they overrated as far as recruiting rankings, which puts some, finger quotes, expectation levels on them? So how much of it is coaching? Zachariah Branch had a really solid game against the Washington Huskies. His best numbers since Michigan. Went over 100 yards. But Deuce Robinson, inconsistent, not playing to his ranking, the recruiting ranking services rankings. Jacoby Lane, he's been good for one game, then he disappears for another, then comes back for another game. Mekhi Lemon has been, I guess, the most consistent. When he's on the field, dude is really good. He has taken over the kickoff return duties. And we know that he can make explosive plays, lining up wide or even lining up in the slot. So as far as the wide receivers and Dennis Simmons, his coaching development, does this go back to not having a dominant number one wide receiver? He was actually on the Trojans live radio show. He thinks it's better that they're able to spread the ball around, get everyone involved. But for whatever reason, it's the wide receiver group isn't contributing like I think everybody, well, at least the way I thought they would be this year. It's not working out. So again, I'm not saying Coach Simmons is the scapegoat and he's the one who needs to be replaced, but I'm thinking if you bring in a new OC, you're bringing in a new scheme, you're probably going to want to bring in maybe a coach or two that you feel comfortable with. So since Coach Riley isn't a viable solution, and again, I'm not one that's ready to endorse even considering that right now. I know it's on the table. A lot of you would say, yeah, it's time to get rid of him. I'm not there. I think the best possible solution is, to solve USC's offensive problems is bringing in a new offensive coordinator, someone who's going to play call. Take that away from Coach Riley. You get a new scheme, and then, with a new scheme, new offensive coordinator, you get a chance to pick a quarterback that fits the scheme. Remember, Alex Grinch tried to make the players fit his scheme. I kind of get the sense sometimes that Coach Riley is trying to do the same thing on offense. A new offensive coordinator might fix that issue. So in the meantime, Coach Riley, I guess he gets to use the bye week. Maybe he's going to transition to Jaden Mayaba, Jake Jensen, Gage Roy. I think Jaden Mayaba is next in line. Regardless of the results, whoever's playing quarterback, Coach Riley has to start showing he's willing to try anything. And that's why we're talking about bigger picture. Doesn't matter what he does this year as far as changing the quarterback. Bigger picture, what happens going forward? And is Coach Riley ready to take that next step in his own coaching development? I think that's the best solution. Get out of his comfort zone. Find an offensive coordinator, someone he's going to be able to trust calling plays. You did that on the defensive side of the ball during the offseason. Do the exact same thing this offseason. Make USC the best possible team out there. USC fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pooled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. And with the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver that content that you're looking for, you know what? You get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Woody Marks, Locked On USC, pitching $100, and I'd love for you to join. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Woody the love and keep him connected to our school, USC. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Plus, if you do that, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Yep, you can win 2 tickets to a game in November. That means you can choose from Nebraska, UCLA, Notre Dame. Those are your 3 choices. Download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code Locked On, and you're automatically entered. You're already on Roy? Cool. Any contribution to any athlete's campaign is also going to get you entered automatically. No purchase necessary. Void is where it's prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram. Also on Facebook, X, @Roy_return on you for more information. Support the players, change the game. Hey, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're halfway through the season now. If you haven't joined FanDuel yet, you're in luck. New customers, if you bet $5, you're going to get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you know what? When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you need to check out the latest stats, view some live play-by-play. You can do that and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Miller Moss has been a really hot topic lately, to the point of I know a lot of you. In fact, I'm starting to wonder. Sometimes I wonder if people are intentionally typing Miller Miss instead of Moss. I know the keys are right next to each other on the keyboard, but still makes me wonder. One of my everydayers who watches, USC from the state of Louisiana. Actually, he moved to Texas. I apologize. He left Louisiana, moved to Texas. He gave me his USC starting quarterback list dating back to 2000. This is who he would pick. We'll call this his best to worst depth chart. All right. So you have essentially 11 starting quarterbacks dating back to 2000. Number 1, Caleb Williams. Number 2, Carson Palmer. Number 3, Matt Leinart. Number 4, Matt Barkley. Number 5, Sam Darnold. Number 6, Mark Sanchez. 7, John David Booty. Number 8, Keaton Slovis. Number 9, Miller Moss. Number 10, Cody Kessler. Number 11, JT Daniels. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I mean, if we're talking most talented, I'm trying to figure out, how he compiled this list. I think he used a few different things, and depending on where they landed on the list, and I'll go over it. I'll give you my opinion on this list here right now. So I think if you're talking most talented, I think you give Williams the edge over Carson. Look, Palmer wasn't as elusive as Superman was, but if you remember Carson in his youthful days, dude was a physical stud. I mean, the prototypical NFL quarterback. 6'5", 220, 225 pounds, just could make big arm. His Heisman year, it was a fun season to watch. He wasn't afraid to use his size. He would take off and run. I mean, he had at least 7 Heisman moments in 2002, helicoptering into the end zone. Fun season. So yeah, Carson Palmer, maybe not quite as elusive as Caleb, but definitely a very good athlete, especially for someone his size. Matt Leinart, number 3, does not compare athletically to either one of those two. Matt was a good athlete in high school. He played 3 sports. But at USC, he was surrounded by some of the best talent in USC history. We were talking about Reggie Bush, Lendell White, Dwayne Jarrett. I mean, Steve Smith. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. But that does not take away from his Heisman Trophy. Caleb won one. Carson won one. Matt won one. It doesn't take away from his back-to-back national championships or a chance to win a 3rd in a row. So I think you probably put Matt up there just because of all of his accolades. But again, as far as athleticism, dude was slower than syrup on a cold Vermont day. But he was smart. He knew when to take off and run. But what about the next group, the next 4? I'm kind of curious what went into this ranking. So you have Matt Barkley. As a freshman, he had that come from behind series win in Columbus, Ohio with Joe McKnight, Stephon Johnson carrying it over. Don't forget he also had that in your game face against UCLA when he hit Damian Williams deep. Hey, coach, Rick, don't call timeout. What is it? FO? Yeah. Some of you know exactly what that means. He called a timeout. He found out. Um, and the other thing with Matt Barkley, he played through the sanction years. That's how he got the nickname Matty Trojan. He could have gone anywhere, and he's stuck with the hometown team, the team he grew up dreaming of playing for. What about Sam Darnold? If you think about it, I mean, he really had that magical run in 2016, the Rose Bowl win. Now he's the man for the Vikings. But he really just had that one good year. Once Helton made the switch, um, Sam was your gunslinger. I mean, big time risk taker. Athletic, loved to take off and run. But he had a lot of turnovers too. And he also had a lot of near misses. Very similar to Miller Moss. Sam, much more athletic than Miller. Bigger, stronger. Not comparing those two that way. Just as far as turnovers, that's what I'm comparing. And why is Mark Sanchez below them? I think, I'm trying to get into to my everyday listener's head, I think it's because he bailed out early. He left Coach Carroll 1 year too early. Some of you may know. Coach Pete, he was not happy with Sanchez's decision to leave. I know the inside story on that. Pete was pissed. Look, it worked out well financially for Mark, but he wasn't ready, and one more year at USC would have definitely helped his career. And then you got John David Booty. I think he was just the unfortunate guy to follow Carson Palmer and then Matt Leinart. He was that transition guy. And it's not his fault that Pete Carroll left him in the game against Stanford. Did he underperform as USC starting quarterback? I don't know. He wasn't the most physically gifted guy, but was 13-9 his fault? I don't think it was. Was it? I don't know. Screw Eric McNeil. That's whose fault it was. And then I guess you get to the scrub portion of the list. I know it's harsh. Remember, it's not my list. Maybe I called it the scrub part of the list. I apologize. But it goes Keaton Slovis, Miller Moss, Cody Kessler, JT Daniels. If anything, I don't know, maybe he's comparing athletic ability, arm strength, lack of wins. But as far as arm strength, out of that group, I would go Keaton Slovis, JT Daniels, Miller Moss, Cody Kessler. Agree? Disagree? As far as Keaton, I mean, dude was a walking concussion. Dude took some vicious hits. JT Daniels, he was always injured. I mean, he played where? USC, Georgia, West Virginia, Rice. I think now he's a quarterback coach at Western Georgia, something like that. He's got his foot in the door starting his coaching career. As far as Cody Kessler, look, I remember Coach Sark. He called him out publicly. Said he needed to trust his guys on the outside. Let them make a play. That's how he got the nickname Check Down Cody. He didn't have the strongest arm. I remember one time I called him Noodle Arm, and the fans just went ballistic. Noodle Arm. He didn't have a strong arm. But you can't use that term. And look, as far as Miller Moss, he's still a work in progress. I don't know if we should put him or we should compare him to anybody yet. I guess you can start the comparisons. I suppose Moss compares somewhere between JD Booty and Cody Kessler, somewhere in there. What do you think? Hit me up with your list. Give me you got the names. Let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, hit me up at the comments section. Send me a tweet or an X post, Instagram. All right, we got one more segment. Hoop season tipped off, men and women. We're going to talk about that coming up next. I know a lot of you have been probably trying to drink this season away. Football season has not gone the way we wanted. Hopefully you used Z-Biotics first before you started drinking. Z-Biotics is pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme. It breaks up the byproduct down, breaks it down for you. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. This is how easy it is. Drink Z-Biotics, pre-alcohol. Make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. That's step 1. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself. Hydrate. Then get a good night's sleep. Step 3, wake up, enjoy tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more, and you're going to get 15% off your first order when you use code LockedOnCollege at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout. And you're going to get 15% off. All right, we're going to talk hoops for a few minutes. I know a lot of you are like, Mark, we don't want to talk about hoops. Yes, you do. Trust me. Yes, you do. I'm going to even talk about the women's team. And you know me, I'm not a big women's sports guy, but USC's got one of the top teams in the country this year. So the women of Troy, they went to France. They tipped up their season against number 20 Ole Miss. USC's ranked number 3 in the country. USC won 68-66. Kiki Iriafen, I apologize for the pronunciation. I'll ask my boy Josh how to say it. She made a pair of free throws with seconds remaining, and USC pulled it out. So they're part of, I guess, a doubleheader that's going off in France right now. As far as Juju Watkins, yeah, she had a great game. 27 points, 10 rebounds. Kiki, I think she had 22 points. So there's your update with the women. Off to a strong start. Went to France, beat the number 20 team in the country, Ole Miss. USC men's hoops, they tipped off their regular season at home. They did that against UT Chatanooga. The men won easily, 77-51. This team you might want to keep an eye on. I know you don't know who they are, neither do I. But they did win their 2 exhibition games, including the win over Gonzaga, number 6 Gonzaga. USC, the men, they were picked to finish 14th in an 18-team conference. So the media doesn't have a lot of respect for this team. I'm still getting acquainted with the roster. Everybody, you'll remember the name Harrison Hornery. He's the only guy on scholarship that returned. They brought in 11 transfers. In this game, USC led by 10 at halftime. It was 32-22. And then with about 10 and a half minutes left to go in the game, USC was leading 55-34. Yeah, they're up 21. They had their way. Literally, 2.5 minutes later, 8-minute media timeout, the lead was extended to 60-37. They figured it out in the second half. They came out ready to play. In the first half, they're still getting to know each other. Okay, the game's a little fast for them right now as they're trying to learn each other's nuances. That's why you play those exhibition games. Excuse me. One thing I like about Coach Musselman, his teams, they play hard. They hustle. You're going to get effort from these guys. Not knocking the previous regime, just saying what you're going to get from Coach Muss, from his guys, hustle. They have a lot of size, too, especially in the backcourt. Everyone is at least 6'3", at least. The guys that are running out there, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", good size. The wings, same thing, 6'5" to 6'9". They're not big down low. They got 1 7-footer. His name is Josh Cohen, transfer from UMass. This team, though, balanced scoring. Agbo and Noling, Malik Agbo, I believe is his name. And then Matt Noling. They led the team with 14 points and 13 points, respectively. So these are some of the names to get to know. You've got St. Thomas, Matt Noling, I just mentioned him. Desmond Claude, he's their main ball handler. Chibuzo Agbo, I apologize. I don't know why I said Malik for. He was a transfer from Boise State. Remember this name. I like this young man. Wesley Yates III. Powerful, big guard. He redshirted at Washington last year. Rashawn Agee, big, thick, prototypical big conference type of player. Josh Cohen, I mentioned him, 7-footer. Agee had a really cool tomahawk jam in the second half. At that point, he gave USC a 68-43 lead. Gates had one. He took off from half court, and when he got to the rim, yeah, big old windmill. Nice finish. So I think right now, here's what you can know about this team. Of the 11 transfers, all 11 of them were double-digit scores at their previous stop. So Coach Muss, he's going to have to kind of figure out the rotation because everyone can score on this team. And as far as the competition, who do they play? Who do they beat? UT Chatanooga. They're a decent team. Southern Conference. They play that Princeton type of offense, which I love. I'm an ex-high school basketball coach. That old Pete Carril's thing that he did at Princeton. You got your big man at the high post, run a lot of motion offense, a lot of cuts, a lot of back screens. And then all of a sudden you got some guy breaking in for an uncontested layup. And if you do get there, they just kick it out for an open three. Well, none of that was working for the visitors against USC. They shot just 18% from the three-point line, 6 for 34. USC wasn't great. A little bit better. They were 8 for 25, 32% from behind the arc. Overall, as a team, USC shot 50% from the floor. That's really good. UT Chattanooga, just 28%. USC brought the defense in the second half, especially. So still, a lot of stuff to work on. They need to improve their defensive rebounding. They won the rebounding edge, I think. I don't have the stats in front of me right now. But they got scrambled a little bit chasing all of those long rebounds from those three-pointers. But again, they weren't lacking for effort or for hustle. And again, they beat the team they should beat the way they should beat them. Small crowd. There'll probably be another small crowd Thursday night when they host Idaho State. So hopefully you can get out there. All right, that's it for this episode of Locked on USC. We talked football, we talked little hoops. But, getting back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, what's your solution? Don't be part of the problem. Don't point at, we know there are problems. Give me some solutions. And then hit me up. Talk about your quarterback depth chart. And if you have any comments about men's or women's hoops, let's talk about it. I'll be back for another episode tomorrow. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.